It's only to walk this way. Walk this way. I love it.
Walk this way, because today is about strategy.
Well, you know what? And that was literally one of my first concerts I went to in Halifax.
Really?
Run DMC played at a bar, and I went there, and it was so much fun.
See, you say Run DMC, and I would say Aerosmith.
There you go.
But that's okay, because that was the hybrid one where they both played together. And I actually, as I had a movie playing in the background here yesterday when I was working, and you know what it was? It was Wayne's World 2, and Aerosmith's in it.
Is it really? Oh, I didn't know that. I've never seen Wayne's World 2. I've only seen Wayne's World 1, which is the most ridiculous movie ever.
Totally ridiculous, but it's one of those things that, okay, when you're like, you're not going to watch it, but then, you know, you're on your computer and you keep looking up.
Because you've seen it, and it's a horrible movie.
Yeah, but who cares? It's funny.
It's funny.
And it's like David Spade and Chris Farley and like just so many funny people.
So many great people. Yeah, exactly.
So today is about strategy. Yay, it's my favorite.
So I've heard that you know something about that.
Yeah, that's all I do. So
you're a strategist.
I love strategy. So like for those of you who are like, oh, this is a scary subject. It isn't. Strategy to me is very, very simple and clean and clear. It's you want to get from here to here, and the strategy is how I'm going to achieve it. That's it. That's really in the simplified version. Yes, there's lots of definitions in terms of leadership strategy and business strategy and life strategies, but essentially it's where you want to go and how you plan out to get there. And so, you know, when we do it, when we focus on our life or we focus on small things, like let's say, you know, you want to paint your bedroom. How you paint your bedroom is your strategy, right? Some people tape at the bottom and on the top, right? Some people don't, they freehand it. Some people spray, some people roll, whatever you're doing is your strategy, but you have one, right? You don't just walk in and go, I'm going to paint my room, but you have nowhere where to start.
So literally you don't want to take the paint and throw it on the wall.
Well, unless you want that look.
Hoping some of the paint will stick on.
Exactly. And when you're cooking, you have a strategy, right? You have a recipe. The recipe is your strategy, because if you follow that recipe at the end of it, you make a really nice meal, right? So we're all fine. Well, some of us, the people that cook.
Does anyone know how to cook? Me?
Yeah. Is Linda on here? She knows how.
Exactly.
So, you know, what's really interesting though, is we're fine with teaching our kids this strategy. Like, this is how you learn how to ride a bike, and this is how you do this. But once we say, oh, what's your business strategy? Everyone kind of, you know, starts like hiding under a blanket because they don't know what they're doing. Right. And they're throwing a lot of things at the wall, the old saying, and hoping something sticks. But strategy doesn't really work that way, right? So strategy is really modeling it out. So you're saying, okay, if I want to get, for example, you know, on point, we're doing a course creation right now, right? So it's 30 days, and I've mapped out on a roadmap, do these steps in this order. That's the strategy of getting your course online. So if you follow the steps of the strategy, you get there. Your end goal is to achieve your results, whatever it is. That's your strategy. Some people have a social media strategy. What about that, Stacy?
Well, exactly. So it always starts with, you know, what do you want to achieve or whatever, but basically exactly what you said before. On a social media strategy, people will just post willy-nilly.
Yeah.
Right. I heard the term, which I don't really love this term. I like the throw spaghetti on the wall.
Yeah.
Phrase in the marketing social media world is the spray and pray.
Right.
Which I don't love that phrase, but it's, you know, you just kind of put stuff out and hoping that something will transpire, a plan to get there.
Yeah, that's what we call hope strategy in business terms. And that means like, you know, try anything you can and hope something works. Generally, like if you get lucky, people get lucky. Sometimes things work. But
Yeah.
generally speaking, if you want results, you need to lay out a plan. And that's for any of your businesses, right? So whether it's your social media strategy, whether it's your how to gain more clients, whether it's how to show up as a global influencer, right? Everything can be achieved, but you need a strategy to get there. And people will spend a whole lot of time making pretty business cards and getting pretty headshots, but they don't want to spend any time actually laying out where they want to go, right? So
does a strategy always start with the end goal?
Of course. So if you don't know where you want to go, it's that old saying, right? If you don't have an end area you want to drive to on your map, like, then where are you driving, right? You need to know where you're going. What's that route taking you to? If you're just like free and clear and want to just go anywhere you want, cool. If your strategy is not to have a strategy and you just want to get out there, fine, but it doesn't mean you're going to achieve the result. So what you want to do is the harder work always is what exactly is it that you want to achieve, right?
Right.
So if you say, I want to paint my bedroom, okay, but that's not enough. That's not clear. What color do you want it? What kind of paint? Where do you want all the walls painted? Like, you have to lay out exactly where you're going for your strategy to work, right? And
Right.
I get a lot of potential clients that I usually don't work with come to me, and they say, oh, I want to, I want to do something online. I want to create a course. Great. On what? And if you have no idea what you're good at, if you don't have any idea, you don't want to go back into understanding yourself and what you have of value and how you can influence people and how you can make a difference, then you're never going to get to that strategy. You're never going to get to the end result. So you're never going to be able to develop a strategy that actually works for you. So if you don't want to use the word strategy because it's scary, just say simply what your end goal is and how am I going to get there? And then so that it's real simple. It's not like, guys, it's really simple. People make it a big deal and they fluff it all up and put all these things around it. It's simple. If this is where you want to go, you work backwards. What does it take for me to get there? What are the steps or the milestones that I must achieve in order to get to the final result? And once you lay that out, if you don't know it, it's okay. You can have a mentor help. You can have a coach helper. You can look online. Google is there for everybody. So,
how do I? Yeah.
Right. And that's, I think the problem is everybody wants the shiny end goal and they want to do, oh, I want to see the pretty vision board and stuff, which is great. Vision boards are great. But again, that's your end goal. Now you got to work backwards and say, okay, vision board, for those of you, who you like vision boards or whatever vision and corporations that you like, they're great because at least you've identified where you want to go. And that's
right.
The key, right? But that's a start, right? You identify your end result and now you got to kind of go, okay, how am I going to get there? And it works for everything, like every single thing you can possibly think of. Right.
Well, I think the biggest challenge for people is that bigger picture of where do I want to go? So if they, maybe break it down, because I remember from my corporate days, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Right.
I like shorter term goals because I find personally I can build those strategies better.
Right. Well, those are milestones, right? So you have a big goal. And then there's all those milestones along the way. And when you achieve a milestone, you feel good and you feel energetic and you want to move forward and go to the next milestone. That's what keeps you on track. But if your goal is in 10 years from now, I want to have $1 million in the bank, and that's your only goal, that's hard to achieve because how do you get there? What does year 1 look like? What does year 2 look like? Right. What do you have? So you have to drill down. If you say you want $1 million in the bank, okay. So now that's a great way to look at it because now you're like, okay, so $1 million I want in a year. Say you want it in a year. You want $1 million in a year. Okay, so how much do you need to make a month? Drill it down by month. How many clients or sales packages or whatever it is that you sell, how many do you have to sell or how much services do you have to provide to hit your monthly number? If you can't hit your monthly number, you're never going to get to that goal. So at least you know, when you lay out the math, at least you know, okay, if it's not achievable, if I work 40 hours a week at my current rate and I still can't get to it, then I have to think of something else to do. Because if that's my goal, what I'm doing right now isn't going to get me there. And that's what you pay somebody, a strategist, or in terms of in corporate, that's what your strategic department does. They crunch numbers, they look at where you want to go, and they go, okay, this is where you have to, what you have to do. So if you are in corporate and you're in a retail environment and you want to be at 50 stores in the next 3 years, you have to start breaking it down. Okay, how many stores can we open a year? How much does that cost to open a store? How many personnel do we need for training? And you drill it down that way. So it is crucial that you actually understand it. And I don't want to get complicated for everyone. It just means that you just need a roadmap. That's it. You just need. And
you also need the goal. And I think the biggest surprise, I guess, when I moved, because I was in the corporate sales environment, and they always had very strict, specific financial goals. So we would take the company's overall target. They would drill it down by country, Canada, here you go. Here's your sales number that you must reach. And then we then had to take it and distribute it. But each sales individual knew what they were required to do. They had clear. And then I then took their number and was able to help them, okay, break it down by quarter. What do you need to do? How many calls? Like, we built it out. So when I moved into the entrepreneurial world, and I would ask people, sort of what their goals were, they really didn't know. And they didn't have a financial target. They didn't have a revenue, but they also didn't have the analytics to know if what they were doing was working.
Right. So you have to understand the math. The math can be, too bad Colin wasn't here, can be sexy, right? The math can tell you if something is working. And, strategy isn't just about your business and your numbers, but it can be about anything. But the truth, if you want to be an influencer, for example, and you want to be on a global stage, your strategy is not about money. Your strategy is about what actions are you taking to get noticed and identified as that influencer, right? What skill set do you need? What skills do you need to develop? What courses do you need to take? What people do you need to talk to? So it's really important that you identify, again, what is it that you want, your end goal is. So, I always say my tag is always, I help you with your ideas and make them into reality. And that's because I can take an idea and drop it down now and say, okay, this is a schedule of what you need to do. Like, this is, I'm stopping at that though. This is what you need to do. We've laid it all out. Here's a roadmap. Now you actually have to go produce it, right? You have to actually put it into play. But unless you have those steps, a lot of people say they want to coach, and that's great because we started On Point Mentors for them, right? And we make it easy. But here's the thing. You want to be a coach. Great. But what is your goal? Where do you want to do? Are you doing it just to help people and you don't need the money? Do you need a specific target on a monthly basis? Do you want to coach? Do you want to train trainers? Do you want to coach other coaches? What is the goal? And then you work back and say what the strategy is. But a lot of people, where they fall down is everyone has a great big idea, right? Everyone has an idea, and they know if they do this idea, wow, like their world will totally change. They'll be rich, and then, and they love it, and it's really exciting. And then what happens, Stacey? Nothing happens because an idea takes work, right? You actually have to go, this is great. How do I get there? And then once you're required to do some work in the planning of it, the strategic part of it, most people leave it. And then what happens in a couple of years? You see your idea, somebody else followed through and did it, and you kick yourself because you're like, damn, they stole my idea, right? But they didn't. The only difference between you and them is they did it. They might not be as smart. They might not be as talented. They might not have as much experience, but they did it, right? They put together a plan to do it, and you did not. So
Well, and it's also interesting because I think a lot of the excuses that come out is I'm busy in my business or
Right.
working the business. So I have clients, I'm coaching them, I'm doing training,
yeah,
this course came up, I'm doing this. So they feel very busy in their business. So taking that time, because you do need to separate the two.
yeah,
And I think
absolutely.
that's, like, yes, you're busy helping clients and all of that kind of stuff, but you also have to block out time to work on your business, which is
Right.
where do you want to go? What are the goals? What's the
Yeah.
plan you're going to do to get there? And what are the steps that you need to take?
Yeah. And
And
planning always takes longer than you think. Always.
yes,
Because you can say, oh yeah, we're going to do this, this, and this, and then when you sit down and do it, you're like, wow. Oh, what about I need to get this straightened out, and I need to understand this, and I need to learn how to do this. So it's not, it's time wise, it's going to take some time. In terms of the simplicity of it, it's fairly simple if you're very clear on your goal. It's
well,
fairly simple.
and it takes time in the beginning
Yes.
to plan that out. Absolutely. But when you actually have the plan and you know what those steps are, then doing the steps doesn't take as much time because you already have it planned out. So
Exactly.
it's sort of front end heavy,
Right.
but then you know what you need to do. And
Right.
to me, when I know what I need to do, when I worked with you and we laid it out, I woke up in the morning, I knew what I needed to do every day.
Exactly.
And I had it scheduled and I had it blocked and I knew what I needed to do. And then it became easy to execute.
Exactly.
That's,
Exactly.
yeah.
But I'll ask the question if anyone wants to chime in, but how many of you actually have your plan laid out for the next year ahead? New year, new plan. I teach that. I teach a whole workshop on that. But how many of you plan it out to know where you're going, what you want to accomplish in the next year, and how you're going to get there? So, for a lot of us, we say, I'll just, because I'm in course creation right now, a lot of us will say, I want to do a course, right? But you don't have an end time. You don't have a date that when you want to have it done by. You don't exactly know what you want to teach. You don't really know who your market is. So it's a little vague, but you want to do one. Well, if you don't have a timeline, like for me, the biggest thing you need is a date. And that's what a strategic initiative does. It gives you a date. It gives you a timeline. What do you want to achieve by when? Because if you don't have a timeline, those milestones aren't exactly going to get you there, because you can stretch out a milestone for years, right? You
My
might say,
1-year plan actually turned into a 5-year plan.
right, exactly. I remember I was talking to my son in the car the other day, and I was talking about when I was in my MBA class, some of the profs had said, we had to do a project, and I was doing Southeast Asian expansion and stuff. And I was sitting there in front of, 10 profs and 500 people and giving my little presentation. And somebody in the group, one of the students stood up and said, well, you're talking a lot about your quarterly plans, but our profs are always teaching about long-term investment. And I'm like, look, I have a long-term strategic plan, but if I don't hit my quarter, which is milestones, I don't have a job. So in corporate, we are very clear on what we have to achieve. And the motivation is our job.
Exactly.
So the problem when you become an entrepreneur is nobody can fire you. And then your milestones, you can look at that 5-year plan and not look at those milestones. So there is a strategic plan. So in corporate words, 3 to 5 years is a strategic plan, right? And then every single year you have an operating plan, and an operating plan has your targets for the year. So that's what you want to achieve with your business, your entrepreneurial business, if that's what you're doing, or whatever business you're ready to launch. You need to say, okay, what is my milestone? So if I don't make money in my idea by 6 months in, do I fire myself because it's not working, right? Or do I rejig it? There's got to be a consequence. You can't just say, keep going and hope at the end of that 5 years, miraculously in the last 60 days, everything's going to pile in. It doesn't work that way.
No, but you're right. And that's what keeps you motivated when you're in corporate, is absolutely that. If you don't and same with, I know project management is the same way. If you don't meet your deadline,
Yeah.
get that done. Now, again, being an entrepreneur, we have the luxury of pushing those deadlines off, but to what extent?
Right.
So I think that accountability, which is why I'm a big advocate. I think everybody needs a coach. I think coaches need coaches, everybody, because again, having that accountability and having somebody say, so did you get that done? Or what's our next step? Because you can't take the next step if you haven't done this step, and you push that out 6 months, you're never going to get anything done.
Exactly.
And you would get fired if you had a boss, you would get fired for that.
Absolutely. So when you're doing your strat plan, your strategic initiatives, that's the mindset you have to have, right? So it has to be very clear, just like in corporate talk. So when you're planning it out, what does it look like? What are your milestones so that you don't fire yourself? That's how I would look at it, right? Like, what do I have to achieve so that I realize, you know, it's working and I'm doing great, or I have to rejig it, or it's not working and I need to go in a different direction. But as entrepreneurs, we might come up with the strategy of where we want to go, but then we give ourselves all this luxury of not hitting those markers. And that's just as bad. That's just as bad.
Well, and Thea's just piping in and saying she agrees as well, right? We have to be prepared to fire ourselves, but interesting because she's also saying, and some of our ideas. So I would take that as saying, you know what? Sometimes you have to fire the idea.
Absolutely.
Because you realize that it's not working and you do need to move on. So that's absolutely.
And you have to rank, like, so we do, when we're doing anything, when we're doing course creation, whatever, we start ranking ideas, and you rank them based on, you know, how the market is going to look at it, how easy it is for entry, a few other things. And so you might love something, you really want to do it, but you realize that it doesn't make any money. And so so that's okay. It could be your hobby. But you have
if I can reiterate something that you said to me a million years ago, approximately back when we were both dinosaurs. I remember coming to you with an idea and something I was really passionate about. And unfortunately, we both agreed that maybe it wasn't necessarily the biggest money opportunity. So we were going to focus here to make money. But what you had said to me was, you can still do that. Make it a bonus in one of your courses or something along those lines. You weren't saying don't do it. So fuel that.
Absolutely.
But not necessarily you don't lead with that.
No.
Which I actually thought was a really, really good idea.
Yeah, because like a lot of your stuff is great. It's just that there's not, there might be, you know, not enough of a market for it, right? Or it might not be, you know, useful at the timing of whatever's going on in the world. Like, you never know what it is. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying to walk away from it, but I am saying walk away from it if that's your bread and butter. If that's what's paying your mortgage, then walk away from it if it's not working. So it's, you know, you need to be able to say this, you need to, if you've planned correctly and you can identify the markers so you know you're not making it, then you need to be able to say, okay, I'm going to flip and go this route, or you're going to go back to working, you know, full time somewhere. But you need to understand where your opportunities and your decisions lie. If you do not have a plan of action, nothing will ever get done. Nothing.
Now, you go back to the drawing board. So that was always a terminology. My dad was a draftsman growing up, so he always used the term back to the drawing board. So if the execution of your idea isn't necessarily taking off right in the beginning, you know, again, to couple of routes, you can abandon it, but can you also go back to the drawing board and rejig it?
Right. We talked about a couple weeks ago, always change a losing game, right? Pitcher terminology, which means that if the game's not going your way, change the pitcher. That's what baseball guys do, and see if it changes it. So if your idea is not going right, change something in it. A lot of times people, this is one of the bigger ones. I have a lot of people who develop programs, and they're very expensive because they've spent like a year developing it, right? And they say there's like 50 hours in it, and it's like everything you need. And so the price is so high that they're not getting anybody to buy it. Right. So what I say is, why don't you just drop the price? I know it took you a whole year to do, but why don't you just drop the price and get more people in than, you know, less people at a higher price? Different strategy, because I usually do the other way, but I'm saying if you know it's not working, that might be something you look at. Or maybe, it's missing a component. That's when you do a survey of people that, have looked at your stuff or you've spoken with, but they've never said yes. It's not unlike people who are in coaching. If every single person that you pitch, every single person you're trying to get on board with your client as a client is saying no, there's something wrong with what you're saying, right? So if everyone's saying yes, your price is probably too low.
Right. There's the other side of that too. But that just
you have to adjust. You have to be able to adjust, but you have to see very clearly. And the only way you can see clearly is if you have a map in front of you that tells you if this, then that. If this, then that. So if this doesn't work, let's try this. Right?
So how does somebody go about creating a plan for themselves, other than the fact that they have to know where they're going?
They have to know where they are, first of all. You
have to know where you're going and where you are. Well, now I have to know a lot of stuff.
We have to know, like most people want to go, they want to go right time, I want to go here. And they have no idea they got to clean up all the crap in the background first, right? So they have to start with basic, I call it life math, me math. You have to basically start with how much, what are your debts? How much do you owe? What's your monthly requirements? Like all the math stuff. What's your monthly base requirement that you must make every single month to at least cover your bills? Forget about profit, to at least cover your bills. That's your, your basic start. That's on this side. On the other side is you have to identify what your strengths are and what's holding you back from doing it. Right? So you got to clean all that up to understand where you want to go. Because if that's still dragging you down, you're never going to be able to get to that goal. So once you understand, and I'm not saying you're going to be perfect, but once you understand that base layer, then you can go, okay, what would it look like? And let's just start for a year. Okay. Forget 5 years, none of that stuff. Because when somebody says, where do you want to be in 5 years? I always go, I'm not 100% sure, because it depends on how things end up. And I'm like that. I'd like to kind of move. I want to hit my goal. I want to hit my year goal. But as I'm doing my year goal, I'm changing up my goals further.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? But you want to be able to say, okay, in a year from now, where do I want to be? And it's not, so you have to be specific. You can't say, I want to be a coach. Great. What does that look like? Do you want to have, 10 clients on a monthly retainer? Do you want to do group coaching? Do you want to work with a directory? Do you want to do it on your own? Do you want a website? What kind of people do you want to coach with? Those are all the questions you need to ask yourself, because being a coach, you can go ahead and be a coach tomorrow, but that doesn't say what kind of coaching you want, how much you want to make, right?
Right.
And why. So why do you want to make that much? Why do you want to be a coach? How does that make you feel? And that's the easiest thing to really understand. So if you see yourself at a year out and you're like, I feel great because I can afford to go on vacation, and I can I have more money to pay bills than I ever had in my life. I have double what I need to pay bills. If you start thinking like that, then you're like, okay, so you feel great if you had double the amount of money that you need to pay your bills. So you already got a goal, right? Yeah. Now you got a goal because you know your number, and so if your monthly expenses are $2,000, and you know that if you made $4,000, you'd feel happy, then you know where you're going. You know what you need to achieve at the minimum to make you feel good. Because right. If I said, okay, give me the same scenario and tell me how you would feel in a year from now if you were making the $2,000 and all your bills are paid. Right. You feel the same, yeah. Right? No vacations, no cases of wine.
You're working at 80 to 100 hours a week.
Yeah. So, if you don't know, I can't answer that. You can come to me as a client, but I can't answer how you want to feel.
Right.
I can ask you the question, but I can't answer it for you. So, what does that life look like in a year from now? Every single person that does courses and coaching, I will ask that question. What do you see for yourself? But I I would go one step further and say, what do you see, but how does that make you feel? Because there's a difference. For some people, they're like, oh, if I won the lottery, that's all I need. Okay, what does that mean? How much money is that? And how is that going to change your life? Right? Like, for some people, they're like, $1 million, I'd be set for life because I'd pay off my mortgage and I do this. Some people would go $1 million, I'd still be like hustling because that's not going to pay anything.
Right.
So you need to be clear.
Yeah. And I think that's some of the biggest challenges, which we talked about before, is making that happen. But it also, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's also, how do you want to use your hours, and maybe how many hours do you even want to work?
Yeah.
Because this is great, but do you want to work 100 hours?
Right.
Maybe not. Maybe you only want to work 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
In which case, that changes the whole dynamic as well.
But I think most people don't sit down and ask themselves the questions, right? They say, I want to do this, or I want to do an online course because then I have passive income. Great. So you're going to spend, 40 hours, 50 hours creating it, and you're going to put that out there. Then what does your life look like? Because that's the base. You get your course out. Now you have to promote it. So how many hours are you going to spend promoting it? What are you going to do to get yourself out there? Those are the kind of things you have to answer before you kind of, jump into anything. Because what does it look like? I can't coach that many hours. I do not have the capacity. I can do a couple hours a day at most. That's all I have in my schedule. So even if I wanted to, I can't. Physically, I cannot do more. So what are your constraints, right? You might say, if I wish I had, 8 hours blocked a day and I was just providing these services. Okay, but what else do you have to do? Do you have to pick up kids from school? Do you have to make dinner? Do you look after parents that are aging? Like, what is it that you have to block out of your schedule before you can say, okay, I still want to achieve this, right? That's still my plan. But now what is my your operating plan, your milestones to get you there?
Exactly.
How many of you actually, do plans? You sit down on a monthly, on a 6 month, 1 year. How often do you actually sit down and go, okay, this is where I want to go? Or if you have a new idea, because most of you are going to say no. If you have a new idea, do you sit down and actually go, this is amazing. How am I going to make it happen? What's my plan?
Yeah, it's the how to make it happen. I think that's where a lot of people also are challenged, because maybe they go, okay, well, I have an idea. I have a basic idea of how I might achieve it. But when it doesn't work, I find, again, I always go back to that old saying, right? When you do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Yeah, and it's amazing because so many people, as you know, as entrepreneurs, you have this great idea and you try to do it and it doesn't work and then you quit. And you didn't need to quit. You just needed to tweak and you just needed to get some direction. It doesn't mean you have to hire somebody. You can ask friends. You can ask, you can go on boards. You can ask communities. What do you think of this? What do I need to change? And you know what? People love to give their opinions. They love to give their opinions.
It's so true.
Right?
Well, Teresa is saying that she has not been doing that previously, but she's going to start and realizing, where does she need to go? What's the end? What's the end result look like?
Yeah. What does it look like? Because, life goes fast, right?
Yeah.
And the year goes fast and it's like August right now. And I'm like, oh my God, like I can't believe I haven't even really worn any summer clothes yet.
No, right?
It's just disappeared this year. So unless you're sticking to your calendar and going, I need to hit this milestone by this date, right? So for those of you, and I know this is an open group, so those of you who are in On Point and you're doing this course creation, I'm very specific with, 30 days, but you have to do your homework along the way. So today, for example, doesn't matter when this airs, today or when you're watching it, you're going to have modules and it's going to be a lot of work. The next week. So today's modules, what I'm releasing is work for another week. And there's a lot to get done.
But
and
that's the part that's fascinating about the fact that people sign up for a course. Let's just take, for example, they sign up for training. they sign up for a challenge, they sign up for a webinar, whatever the case may be. And then they somehow think that miraculously through
Because they
osmosis,
signed up. Yeah.
but they have signed up. So isn't that enough?
Yeah, exactly.
So
And that's that. And it's funny because I get that all the time when people will go, oh, well, I didn't see that. Oh, we'll read the material. Right? Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. Well, there's a deadline on it. It tells you to go do it now.
when you're in school, a teacher gives you homework.
And you do it.
There's a deadline. And you got in trouble if you didn't do it. Well, back in my day, we did anyway.
Yeah.
But again, I feel like, again, that accountability piece of there's something you need to do. When you sign up for something, there's something you need to do, and it might be due at a certain date. You push that off, that's on you.
Yeah. So I'll give you another example. There's for people that are doing the coaching course, I'm very clear. I've laid out how to actually structure packages. So for people who are just starting out in coaching, I'm like, okay, you can offer these things, and here's a script if you think people are going to say you're too expensive or whatever. So I've showed examples. I've told you what to do. So if you watch that training and then don't do it, then you still won't have packages to offer, right? So you actually have to, you retain that, you've got that knowledge. I handed it to you. So now you have to do something with it to be able to implement it or produce it to obtain results, right? So your strategy is to watch the training and to produce the training so it will actually happen. So you can't say, oh, my strategy is I'm going to take these courses and everything's going to work for me. Yeah, it won't. It doesn't
work like that.
Mm-hmm. I wish it did.
Right? So yeah. Allison's saying she goes, I've been planning on planning. So we've all been there. Yeah. I have literally the most beautiful, and I know it's 2020 and there's lots of jokes around this, but I have beautiful, stunning content planners. I think I have 3. And I did a great job planning to plan.
Yeah.
So all kidding aside, she has not been holding herself accountable monthly. Yeah. I like to create now in action. So that's the big thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the only way you can do it. You have to give yourself dates because otherwise, if you don't, you can always find an excuse. I'm guilty of it too. I can always find a reason not to do something, right? Because I would rather.
Because it's so easy to move things around in your calendar.
So easy.
Those digital ones, edit, change, done. Look, it's not on my to-do list anymore.
So I have a rule when I'm doing planning, and for those of you guys who've done some of my courses, you'll know it with your calendars. I always say you can write it in your calendar and you have to do it. If you can't get to it, you can move it. But if you move it 3 times, then you're never going to do it. So you might as well take it out and recognize the fact that you will never get it done. Because the truth is, if you allow yourself to move it more than 3 times, you're going to allow yourself to move it 100 times.
Right.
So, and do it, just keep yourself accountable just once, and then your brain will understand it. So if you say, and I'll give you an easy one, if you say, starting next week, I'm going to go on a walk Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And you put it in your calendar, and you move Monday because you got busy to Tuesday, right? And then all of a sudden you go, well, I can't really do it. I'll just walk extra on Wednesday. All of a sudden you're going to move. So if you find yourself moving it, get rid of it and say, you know what? This isn't for me. I'm never going to commit to walking. So let me find something else to do for my health, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's just not the right thing, right? Maybe you've just heard it. It's kind of like, every time I say, and I don't do it anymore, I'm going to run the 5K because my kid wants me to do it. I hate running.
I had to admit, I do not enjoy working out at a gym. Right. It's not my thing. I've tried all of them, and from nice to crappy to local to not. And I finally took it out of my calendar and honored it. I'm not a gym person.
Right. Yeah. And that's okay. It's okay. You just have to understand it. And that's the whole part about learning, understanding strategy and vision, is because you need to be very, very clear about it and say, okay, if I know that it's really not what I like, then I'm not going to put a strategy together. I'm not going to say Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because my strategy is going to fail, right? It's going to fail. because you're pretending that you want something that's not really there. It's, again, how do you feel? Do you feel like if you walked instead of going to the gym, and I don't know what you like, Stacy, but say you love to, all of a sudden you realize one day that you love walking. Well, it'll be a lot easier to schedule that in if you realized you loved it, right? Sometimes we don't know, right? Try something new. Maybe you're into yoga. Maybe you're, whatever it is, biking. I don't know. But if you find something, you will miraculously figure out a strategy to do it.
And you will make time for it, for sure. And Thea's pointing out, which I think we just need to obviously think about as well. She's saying having the right people on board really helps with the how and getting things done. So sometimes you can't do it if you're going for a walk. But if you look at pieces of your strategy, sometimes you can outsource pieces of it if it's not either in your wheelhouse to do, or if you need a system to make it happen.
Or if it's just like for Stacy and I, we are both fully capable of doing all of our social media, but we don't want to because we can use that time for something else. So we still do a lot of it, but we also have help doing it because we want to spend time doing bigger projects. So there's nothing wrong with that. What the best thing to do is if you really truly have a strategy, you guys are part of this group. And it's open. And Fridays we say, ask us anything, right? So put it down in the group. You guys are so scared. Put it down in the group and say, this is what I want to do, but I don't know how to get there. Does anyone know? Is there anyone there that can help me? Got any steps for me? Or
I know a strategist. I wonder if she would be available on Friday around 7 to chat with us.
And then you would say, if we got that right, but I don't know how to actually produce it to make it work. Oh, well, Stacy can help you with that because she knows actually how to produce things. So there's no excuse. Everyone always thinks, oh, I don't want to write it down. I don't want to look stupid. You can look like, first of all, you're never going to look stupid if you write down what you want to do. But secondly is you're going to look smarter than everybody else because you're the only person that actually posted it and is holding you accountable. I appreciate people that actually say things out loud because I have no idea what anyone's doing. If you guys just listen and that's your thing, that's great. But if you want to really do something, then write it in the group and say, look, I want to do this. What do you think of the idea? Trust me, don't worry about people stealing it because there isn't any new ideas.
Really?
There aren't any new ideas.
Yeah.
It's your take on the idea. So, and you know what? If somebody in this group, you put out an idea of what you want to do and somebody copied you, how many billions of people are in the world? I think
they can find it.
I think there's enough people in the world for both of you to be successful. No, absolutely. I don't think anyone's going to steal it, but the truth is there's so much out there. You just have to sit down and think of what you want to do, your vision, and then map out the roadmap, the steps that you must achieve to get to that vision. Yes.
Yeah. So Teresa's just being honest. She goes, I don't know what the hell I'm doing half the time, but she's working with a coach and making her goals happen. So that's
great.
Awesome.
And that's all it takes, right? It's just aligning. Sometimes it's not like, for those of you who can work with a coach, that's awesome. For those of you that say, I can't afford it, it doesn't matter. There's accountability partners everywhere, right? Yeah. Pick up somebody in the group, pick up a friend, anyone you want, and say, look, could I just, use your brain for an hour? Can I buy you coffee and sit down and say, can you just let me talk and I just want to see where you think this idea could go. Do you think it's the right thing to hit these milestones? Do you think I can achieve them? Do you think I should tweak them a bit? Great to have somebody's ideas and some feedback, right? It helps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That was awesome. I love talking strategy. I think I could talk strategy and planning all day, but that's okay. So tomorrow at noon, same time, talking about tech. So yes, there are tools to be able to help you with your strategy. So we will talk about those tomorrow. And then of course we have Free for All Friday here in the group as well on 7. So at 7, sorry. So again, post in the comments here, post in the group in general, anything you want to ask, talk about, or anything like that, we can definitely cover on Friday night.
Yeah. Yay. So make sure we see you tomorrow. But in the meantime, grab your books and start mapping out where you want to go.
All right. See you tomorrow.